I'm just going to ask them a couple questions about their early childhood and some things that they've gone through in their lives. Grandma, where is the first home that you remember, and what did it look like?
Well, my first home was where I was born, in Leamington, Utah, and it was one that my father built room by room, and just from one room, and then he'd add another room. And when I came along, it had a bathroom, which none of the others had. Since I'm the 11th child, I got all the advantages. And it had 3 bedrooms upstairs, and 1 bedroom and a parlor and a dining room, and a big kitchen, and a separator room downstairs.
So your dad actually built the house
Mm-hmm.
from the ground up?
He did.
Wow, that's great. So you lived in that house in Leamington
Yes.
until you were how old?
Until my parents sold it when I was 23 years old. I did go 2 winters to Cedar City to what was then the Branch Agriculture College, and 2 years to Utah State University in Logan in the winters, but I came home in the summer.
How about you, Grandpa? What's the first house that you remember, and what was it like?
The first house I remember was in Fillmore, Utah, and it was a small log house, maybe 3 rooms that my father rented. But I spent most of my time about a half a block away in my grandfather's house, which was a pretty nice house, both on 3rd South Street, West 3rd South Street in Fillmore.
In Fillmore?
Yeah.
You spent most of your time at your grandpa's house,
Yes.
and what was that house like?
Well, it was stucco house, and it had a front room, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen downstairs, and 2 bedrooms upstairs, and then a little hall, porch out on one side of the house with outside water,
Huh.
outside bathroom.
So you had to go outside to get water and stuff. You weren't as lucky as Grandma.
No.
So who was your first best friend, Grandpa?
My first best friend was my brother, Sterling, who was not quite 2 years older than I.
How about you, Grandma?
I had 2.
All right, Grandma, who were your best friends when you were little? Or who was your first best friend, I guess?
Well, my first best friend was Renee Harder. She was just 1 month older than I was. And then my second best friend was Susan Finlinson, and she was about 6 months younger than I was. And we've been friends since the day we were each born. And I attended Susan's first birthday party when she turned 1. So, and we've always been friends, and we're still the best friends.
Wow, that's really neat. How many brothers and sisters did you have when you were born, Grandpa?
I had 1 brother when I was born,
Sterling.
Sterling.
Okay. And then eventually, how many brothers and sisters did you
I
end
had
up
5 sisters. My mother had 5 more girls. That would make 7 in the first family. And she passed away, and my father remarried. And my stepmother had 8 more children. 1 died as a baby, but there
Wow.
were 6 of those still living.
Wow. How about you, Grandma? How many children were there when you were born?
There were there were 9 living. An older brother and an older sister died when they were just a little over a year old.
That would be 9 with you.
Yeah.
9. Okay.
8 brothers and sisters, because I was the last child in the family, the youngest.
What do you remember about your room, Grandma, when you were little?
My bedroom?
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the upstairs rooms, and then one I slept in the most was the northwest corner. And my sister Emily had a cedar chest in there that when she would come home from Salt Lake, she'd open, and I loved that cedar smell, and she'd show me all the special things that she had in there, and that was fun.
So who did you share the room with?
My closest sister was 12 years older, and the rest in between her and me were boys, so I had a room to myself.
Well, that's pretty lucky. I never had a room to myself till I went on my mission.
One interesting thing about my brothers and sisters, my mother had a child every odd year for 20 years, from 1899 until I was born in 1919. So
Every odd year.
Every odd year. So that's how I had the 10 brothers and sisters.
Wow. How about you, Grandpa? What do you remember about your room?
I and my brother had a little room after my mother and father built another new house. We had a little room that a double bed just barely fit in, and the closet was elevated again. And my brother each night would open the windows wide, even if it was below zero. And so I learned to sleep next to him and with my head covered, just my nose out, to keep warm. It was very cold in the winter, the way he opened the windows.
Why would he open the windows like that?
It was a fad at that time that sleeping with open windows was much healthier than not.
And he believed in that
He
fad.
believed in that fad. Our doctor told us, leave the doors closed, keep it at 72 degrees. You have forced air heating, and so we cut down a great deal on our own children being sick by doing that.
And what were your favorite toys, Grandpa?
The favorite toy I remember the best was an old second-hand bicycle line my brother bought and rebuilt. And we could not afford tires, so we took an old hose and wrapped it around where the tires went, and that's the one I remember. That and a flipper, a homemade flipper.
What's a flipper?
Two elastic deals to shoot rocks at birds and squirrels and
Oh,
things.
like a
of that
slingshot.
nature. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Grandma? What were your favorite toys?
I think my very favorite was a tea set that I got one year for Christmas, because we could never afford Christmas presents, and because I was the youngest, by the time I came along, my parents did splurge and buy me a tea set, a China tea set.
Wow. Okay. What was your favorite book as a child, Grandma?
I think Heidi, Hans Brinker and the Silver Skates. My dad used to read to us at night, and those were the books that I remember him reading.
So you had a lot of books in your home?
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
We had one bedroom had a whole wall covered with bookcases, and I used to love to look at the old church authorities, the old bishops and stake presidents from way back, and with their beards and their mustaches.
So were books pretty? Was it pretty common for families to have a lot of books?
Yes.
Yeah. How about you, Grandpa? What was your favorite book as a child?
I guess The Last of the Mohicans.
Last of the Mohicans. And did you have a lot of books in your home also?
We had quite a few. Not a lot, no. We had one little bookcase full, about the size of that deal over there.
Okay.
A couple more shelves.
When you were little, did you have a secret hiding place that you would sometimes go to be alone, Grandpa?
Yes, I don't know how secret it was, but I would go up to the barn and get on the hay, and not too many people would bother me up there.
Where was the hay? Was that on a hay loft?
No, it was in the barn itself, in the barn.
You just go climb up on the hay?
Uh-huh.
How about you, Grandma?
Oh, my favorite one was on my dad's farm, which was a mile away from our home, but it was a silo where we put chopped corn to make silage to feed the animals in the winter, and it was a tall cement round
Typical sound.
silo, and when I'd get in there and holler, it would echo up through, and then when I wanted no one to find me, I'd be very quiet.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Grandpa, when you were little, did you have a nickname?
Yes.
And what was it?
Pooch.
Pooch? How did you get that nickname?
Three of us, my brother and a friend by the name of Frank Mumford, a distant relative, and myself used to play cowboys. I was Hoot Gibson, Frank was Tom Mix, and my brother was Bill Hart. Now it came from me being Hoot Gibson to Poot Gibson, playing cowboys. They were the famous cowboy movie actors at that time.
So they called you Pooch?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like that nickname?
I didn't mind it.
It wasn't Pooch, it was Poot.
Poot.
Poot? How about you, Grandma? Did you ever have any nicknames?
No, my name was short enough, and I didn't have a middle name, so no one ever called me anything but Nina, except Nina.
Nina? Okay, what was the first movie you ever saw, Grandma?
Gone with the Wind
And where did you see it?
in Delta, Utah, where I went to high school.
And was it, how old were you when movies started being prevalent where you lived?
We didn't have a theater in Leamington, so I probably didn't see them when they first came out, but I was probably a junior in high school when I saw Gone with the Wind, and I fell in love with Clark Gable.
How about you, Grandpa? What was the first movie you saw?
The first one I remember is The Covered Wagon, and they put out 3 versions of it. It's a story about the pioneer treks west, including the Oregon Trail or whatever, in their you say it.
Constanza wagons.
Constantinople?
No.
No, I can't say it. Is that it?
That's
The
close.
Covered Wagons.
Yeah, that's close.
And Grandma, did you have a radio in your home when you were young?
We did. We listened to One Man's Family and Amos and Andy and
That was on records.
a lot of the old radio programs. As I grew older, I used to love to listen to the band. What were they called?
Lucky Strike.
The favorite band music.
Big bands?
Big band music.
How about you, Grandpa? How
No,
old were you when you...
We didn't have a radio. Something important, we went down to the corner to our distant cousin's place, Rasmussen's place, and listened to his radio. Later on, Sterling and I had a little crystal set. You know what they are?
Yeah.
And we could pick up a few programs that way. But I was in high school before we had a radio.
Before you had a radio? And what type of games, Grandpa, what type of games did you play outside with your friends when you were young?
Hide and seek, run sheepy run, and hockey in the winter on ice.
Ice hockey?
Ice hockey,
Did you have ice skates?
yes,
You played ice hockey?
yes.
And what is run sheepy run? How do you play that?
I've forgotten. You tag somebody and they'd run and you'd try to catch them or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Or you'd spot them and you'd have to run to a certain point before they did. If they beat you there, they were safe. If you beat them there, they were caught.
How about you, Grandma? What kind of games did you play outside with your friends?
Well, the same grandpas, except we played pom-pom pull-away, which we divide up sides and see who could pull the hardest and pull the other team over on our side of it. And then in the summer we had the Sevier River ran through town and we swam a lot. So that was most of our recreation in the summer, when there was swimming time.
And who did you play these games with, Grandma?
Oh, there were 12 girls in Leamington my age and no boys, so I played with the girls.
And Grandpa, go ahead, Grandma.
And
Sorry.
my friends, just a lot of good friends.
Grandpa, when you were playing hide and go seek and run sheepy run, who were you playing with most of the time?
Oh, my brother and my oldest sister Melba and some of the neighbor kids, including my cousin Harvard Hatton. And it's just whoever happened to be around. There were a number of kids, Boyd Dearden, and
Mm-hmm.
there were kids around, whoever happened to be there. At
Gra-
night, after the work was all done.
Yeah. Grandma, what can you tell me? Is there one special memory that you have of your mother early on in your childhood?
My mother was a very ambitious woman. She especially loved to garden, and she would get up really early, and she had wonderful vegetable garden. She would try a lot of things that other people didn't try, like Chinese cabbage and some of the things that weren't as ordinary as carrots or tomatoes. But she had all of those too. But she also had the most beautiful flower gardens in Millard County. And she sent to Sears in Salt Lake and had them draw up a plan for flower beds, and it had paths in between, and it was beautiful. It's like paradise.
Wow. And what are some early memories that you have of your father?
My father was bishop of the ward for 28 and a half years, so all the time I was growing up he was bishop, and I remember him at a roll-top desk making out tithing receipts and doing records for the church. And we had a lot of not a lot, but some general authorities and some of the presidents of the church used to come and stay at our home because he was the bishop, and there was no hotel in town, so our home was sort of like the town hotel.
So what president of the church came and stayed at your
Heber
home?
J. Grant and let's see who, I guess Joseph F. Smith, and so this was quite an exciting thing for us to have general authorities. Also the stake president, Alonzo Hinckley, who is President Spencer,
President Hinckley's uncle.
President Hinckley's great-great-grandfather
Oh,
was one of the men that would come and stay.
and you remember meeting then Heber J. Grant and Joseph F. Smith?
And some of our special books were from Heber J. Grant. That was one of his things that he did, was give books to people that he would stay with. That was his memento to leave with them, with his autograph in. I wish I had the books now. I don't know where they are.
That's really neat. And Grandpa, what are some early memories that you have of your mother?
My mother practically introduced music into Fillmore. She taught voice, she taught piano, she taught violin, she played the violin, the saxophone, and the trombone, and was a stake music director, and it was her money actually that built our second home that we all moved into. And she was just a very energetic, she belonged to the garden club. She introduced roses into Fillmore, and mainly her extra activities she did in the line of music. She's a very good musician.
And what are some early memories that you have of your father?
Work.
Work?
We worked from before it got light in the morning till after it got dark at night. And his favorite saying was, "Thank the good Lord you're able to work and have work." So he was a workaholic, but very efficient in his work. I remember 19, we're shoveling gravel, and I was going to show him up, but he had a smooth way of handling that shovel to load the gravel into the wagon, and he showed me how to do it.
So he
Very
showed you
efficient.
up, huh?
Oh, he showed me, yeah.
And was your dad the first one to come over from Denmark?
No, my grandfather, Hans Rasmussen, came from Denmark in 1862. He was a pioneer. He lived to be almost 97 years old, and I knew him. And my grandfather Rasmussen actually had more influence on my life growing up than any other person, because I took care of him. I was assigned to take care of his garden, to take care of his chickens, to take care of him, and that was my extra assignment.
So did he speak with an accent?
Spoke with a Danish accent. His favorite saying was, I'd be working in his garden, and a friend would come over, and he'd go over and stand by the fence and shake his hand. Another friend would come over, and then he would say, "Gosh, damn." He'd say, "One boy's a whole boy, two boys a half a boy, and three boys no boy at all." You want me to repeat that?
Yeah.
I had the privilege of knowing pioneers in Fillmore, including my grandfather, 3 or 4 of them. And today there aren't very many people living that knew pioneers. A pioneer was someone who came across the plains to the valleys here before the railroads in 1869. My grandfather came in 1862 from Denmark.
Did he speak a lot about crossing the plains?
Only that he was crossing the ocean. They were on the ocean about 3 months, and he had a dictionary, a Danish-English dictionary, so they appointed him as the interpreter. And when then they rode the train to Florence, which is now Omaha, and he joined a pioneer company there, and because he'd had this experience, they had him to be the interpreter of this Danish company, and they also asked him to drive a team of oxen, which means you walk. So he walked across the plains, and then to pay back his perpetual immigration fund, the next year he borrowed 2 unbroken oxen and a wagon in Fillmore and drove them back to Omaha to get another group of people, and then walked back and drove them back to the Salt Lake Valley. So he walked across the plains 3 times, driving oxen.
That's incredible. Did he speak a lot about that when you were young?
Not too much. I kind of had to get it out of him. He told me a little bit about the people he brought over. He brought over his first wife who got sick, and then he brought over his second wife, and he sent her enough money to get over, and she had a 7-year-old brother that she smuggled under her dress and brought him over, Anton Sorensen. And so then he brought his brother and his wife over after he came here. So he brought 5 or 6 people from Denmark. Over to Fillmore.
Huh. And Grandma, do you remember any of your grandparents or great-grandparents when you were growing up?
Yes, I knew my grandfather and grandmother Stevenson very well, because my grandfather Stevenson was stake patriarch in Holden, Utah, and my mother was their oldest child, and he used to come and stay with us after he retired from. He ran the church store in Holden, and also had farms, and but he would come, and I remember him sitting under the tree by the side of the house telling me stories. My grandmother lived until I guess just before we were married.
Yeah, I met her.
And so she lived to until she was almost 1944, and she used to come and stay with us in Leamington, and she was a fine, sweet lady, good. And her youngest daughter was the same age as my second sister, and her youngest daughter's name was Clara, and she was one of the kindest people to me of anyone that I've known. She was my aunt, but she was very kind and sweet to me.
Grandpa, how old were you when you started going to grammar school or to grade school? And
6 years. 6 years old.
6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And did you go the whole day?
Yes. Yeah. We went in Little Rock schoolhouse is still standing there. It's a historical building now in Fillmore. Yes, I went every day from 6 through 17 when I graduated from high school.
To the same school?
No, 3 different schools.
Oh, okay.
It was a grade school, and right next to it was what they called a junior high. And then when I was 14, we entered the high school and did 4 years in high school. Let's see, we went 12 years. We went 4 years, 6 years in elementary, 2 years in middle
Junior
school,
high school.
junior high, and 4 years in high school. Walked, of course, we always walked.
And how far away was it from your house?
3 blocks.
Wow.
Each one of the schools.
Big walk.
And during summer vacations, did you work the whole time on the farm?
I even had to quit early and enter school late to work on the farm, yes.
Was that pretty common? Were there a lot of children that did that?
Yes, quite a few. I'd always quit it 2 to 3 weeks before school was out. My dad would take me out of school. And we were always 2 or 3 weeks late entering school in the fall because we worked all the time, daylight till dark.
And how about you, Grandma? What grade school did you go to?
I went to grade school in Leamington and for the first 6 years, and then I went, I guess, 8 years. No,
Yeah, I
What
think
would
you
it
went
be?
8 years in Leamington,
in
and 4
Leamington,
years in
and
Milton.
then 4 years. I rode the school bus from Leamington to Delta, which was an hour ride every morning and an hour ride every night to go to school, to Delta High School. And that's where I graduated from high school.
And what do you remember about your summer vacations?
When I was, well, because my mother loved to garden, most of my summers were spent, and my siblings that were next to me were boys, so I was the housekeeper, the dishwasher, the separator washer, which I hated, and because it was so hard to clean and get the milk, that sour milk. So the milk wouldn't turn sour in the separator. And then I was the one that mopped the floors and made the beds. But when I was very young, I had pneumonia, and my dad said to my mom, I think the thing that will really make her healthy is to be out in the fresh air all summer. So I herded cows on my favorite animal, and that was a horse named Bolly. And I used to go to sleep on Bolly's back. And Bolly herded the cows, and I slept in the sunshine. And then I rode the stacker horse for putting the hay in the barn. And I did some tromping of hay, but not a lot because I had brothers. I never did learn to milk a cow.
Really?
Because I had
What is tromping hay?
that.
Can I tell?
Yeah, let him tell about
They
it.
would stack rows in the fields, and when the hay was dry, then they drive a wagon down with what they call the hay rack, a wide rack, and they pitch the hay up on top of it. And you had someone up there tromping it, so you'd get maybe 3 times as much hay. If you just stacked it up, you'd only get a third of a load, or if you tromped it down, then you'd get twice or 3 times as much hay on a wagon.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'd pull that wagon load, and they had a fork that came, what they called a Jackson fork, that'd come down in the hay this way. And she'd ride the stacker horse. It'd lift it up, and it'd hit on some runners, then it'd run in the barn, and they'd dump it.
Huh.
So
We
they
filled the barn with hay to feed the animals in the winter.
So they threw the bundles of hay up, you'd tromp them down. Once in a while, they would throw a rattlesnake up. So you just simply go off the other side of the wagon. You'd hear it buzzing, you know.
Did they do that on purpose?
Oh no,
Yeah.
they're under the bundle of hay, and
Oh.
if they lift the hay, then the rattlesnake would rattle us. Throw it up
And you
there.
just jump off, huh?
Yeah, sure. Time you got back up, it would crawl down in the bottom of the rack and probably got out.
But I was afraid of snakes, and I still am.
And you also talked about a separator. What is that?
Well, for the milk, they'd bring the whole milk in from the cows, and this separator would separate the cream from the milk. So we'd use the cream to make butter and also sell the excess to have money. And that's what the separator was. But it was a very difficult thing, and we had to crank it. We had to do it by hand to
Well,
make it go.
hydraulically throw the milk out and keep the cream in the center. So you put whole milk in and you'd have two funnels out, one with the separated milk and the other with the cream. And it had maybe 100 discs in there that would going around fast. But it worked for
You crank around
That's
the
what she
disc.
had to wash.
Mm.
Well, you had to crank it, and it
Yeah.
took a while to get it up to
To speed.
the speed because that was going very fast where it separated the milk from the cream. They
And-
still do use that method in the dairies
Today.
now. Not the same kind, they've updated them a lot.
And they're run by machines, not by
Not little
crank
girls.
hands. Not little girls.
The little boys, I did it too.
Did you, Grandpa, did you get an allowance?
50 cents a year
50 cents a year,
for
huh?
the summer. No, I got it twice. I got 50 cents at the 4th of July celebration. Then usually at the end of the year, Dad would give us $3 or $4 to buy another pair of shoes. That was our allowance. The average farmer in that area didn't have $400 cash a year.
Hmm. How about you, Grandma? Did you get an allowance?
My allowance was an egg once, maybe once every other week, and I'd take it to the store, which was just two buildings away, and that's what I'd buy my treats with.
With
The
an egg?
store manager his birthday was the same day as mine, so one egg went pretty far with him and me. 'Cause I was kind of his special girl, because I was born on his birthday.
Well, that was pretty lucky. Who were your favorite teachers in high school, Grandma? And what was special about them?
I think my very favorite was my type teacher, and her name was Miss Sanford, and she was really, really good to me, and I became fairly proficient in type, but haven't get to that. But also I took band and orchestra, and Mr. Dorius was our music teacher, and he was always fun and special. And I played the trumpet in the band and sang in the chorus, and I was an alto singer.
And the chorus.
Uh-huh.
How about Grandpa? Who were some of your favorite teachers in high school?
I think my favorite was Mr. Watcott, who taught me band and orchestra. And I also played the trumpet, or an old cornet I had. Other than that, I don't think I had Mr. Melville, who was a nice fellow. That's all I remember.
That's about it. Grandpa, did you ever get in a fight with anyone
Yes.
in high school?
Yes, there was always bullies in every school, and I was little. I was slow growing up. I used to say because I had to work so hard. One fellow was a real bully, and he picked a fight on the way home, but I threw him in a ditch of water and held him in there. But the next night his brother come and caught me, his older brother, and let him pound on me to make it even. Then there was another fellow,
Do you remember their names at all?
Oliver Davis was the bully, and Kenneth Davis was his older brother that held me, and
Well, his
Oliver
younger brother.
got even with me. Held my hands behind me, and he just,
And who was the other person?
I don't remember his name, Day. I think his last name was Day. They egged I and a friend of mine to fight one time, Melville Trimble, but we didn't put much enthusiasm in it because we were friends, but a lot of the bullies around there talked us into fighting.
How about you, Grandma? Did you ever get in any fights?
The only time I really remember becoming angry was I had spent quite a bit of time combing my hair and getting ready for school to ride the school bus, and I got on the school bus and Lloyd Evans had a handful of cockleburrs, and he rubbed them into my newly combed hair. And they not only mussed my hair up, but they were sharp and hurt my head. So I got pretty mad at him, and I got up and tromped him with my high heels on. Stepped in his back, and that didn't feel
Ouch.
good.
What were some popular songs when you were going to high school?
The Object of My Affection is the one I remember the most. I don't know. It was just the beginning of the swing area, and the end of the 20s, flapper area. But I remember the Object of My Affection more than any.
How does that song go?
The object of my affection can change my complexion from white to rosy red. Every time she holds my hand and tells me that she's mine.
How about what are some songs that you remember, Grandma?
Golly, I can't. Just
2'2", Eyes of Blue.
5'2", Eyes of Blue.
You have some written down here. Goody goody,
Oh,
you turn the tables on me.
Yeah.
Moon eye low or something.
Moon over
Miami.
Miami or something.
And Harvest, Shine on Harvest Moon.
How does goody goody? What is goody goody? How does that one go?
Oh, you told me goodbye and said I would cry. Goody, goody. Oh, you, I can't
Goody,
remember
goody
it
for
now.
you.
Goody, goody for me. Oh, I hope you're satisfied, you rascal, you.
Let's see. Okay. What were some popular slang phrases in high school? Grandpa?
Popular what?
Slang phrases.
Oh, I don't know. What do you have down there?
Gee whiz.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Gee whiz, dang it. And be careful,
Gosh.
you know. That pool in town with gee whiz, so you had to be. What was the other one?
Cute kids.
Yeah,
It bums me.
yeah. Those are the ones. Gee
Oh my
whiz, I
gosh.
remember more than any.
Oh yeah. All right. Let's see what we got here. How old were you when you first drove, Grandma?
I was probably in college before I even got behind a car and the wheel of a car. And my brother and I were driving to Nephi, and he decided that I should learn to drive. So he was just 2 years older than me and thought he knew everything. And he used to irritate me a lot. So he found fault with everything I did, and I really didn't learn to drive. And then I didn't get a driver's license until, I guess I was 20.
After we were married.
Yeah, after we were married, and probably.
Back in Delta or Springville.
So I was quite old. I didn't really do any driving. I had too many brothers that wanted the car.
That one. How about Grandpa? How old were you when you first drove?
12.
12 years old.
And Dad had to put a pillow in back of me and under me so I could look over the steering wheel on an old Model T car.
Where did you go to college, Grandma?
Well, I mentioned earlier I went 2 years to Cedar City to the Branch
Right.
Agriculture College, as it was known then. It's now Southern Utah University. And then I finished I graduated at Utah State University after 2 years up there, majored in home economics.
And Grandpa, where did you go to college?
I went to the BAC, the University of Utah. Then in military training, I also went back to the University of Utah, the University of Tonka, Oklahoma University, and the University of Texas during flight training. We also took classes at these universities for college credit classes, along with our flight training.
And you wrote down that you had some extracurricular activities in college. Do you remember some of those? Wrestling?
Well, I was in the marching band at the University of Utah, and also the band and orchestra in Cedar City. Would you count work or what?
Wrestling?
Sure.
He said that he's
Yeah, I
Wrestling.
wrestled, and I ran a half mile at the BAC, not very well, but I wrestled pretty good. I guess that's it.
Can you, do you remember when you and Grandpa first met Grandma? What is the first thing you noticed about Grandpa?
Well, after I graduated from Utah State, I went to Fillmore to teach home economics at Millard High School, and I had two sisters and their families that lived in Fillmore. And when I went there to teach, they said, "If you come to Fillmore, we'll find you a husband." And so I said, after I'd been there almost a full winter, I said, "Well, where is the husband you were going to find me?" And they said, "Wait till Julian Rasmussen comes home from his mission." And so when he came home in the spring,
I came home in September and gave my report in February. That's when you met me.
oh, and we in the state conference, he reported in state conference in Holden, and his uncle, who had been teaching English across the hall from me at Millard High School, introduced us. And so I said to my brothers-in-law, "So you were going to find me a husband." It took Uncle Frank to introduce us. And so that's the first time we met, and then it took a while after that.
And do you remember the first thing you did as a date?
Went to see...
I tried to kiss her and she wouldn't let me.
You tried to kiss her on the first date?
Yeah,
He did
Well, I
not.
remember you telling us not to kiss on the first date.
I learned my lesson.
We went to see a movie. I think it was For Me and My Gal, which was one of the songs we used to. The bells are ringing for me and my gal. That was our first date.
And how long after you first started dating did you think about getting married?
Grandpa.
Think about it. About a year.
A year?
Uh-huh.
And how did you ask her to marry you?
Well, by that time I was in the service, and she came down to see me in Tonka, Oklahoma. I had bought a ring to give her earlier, and then I hadn't done it. And so I wrote and asked her and said, my sister Gwen was just in Salt Lake, I was in Texas. And I said, "Gwen will send you down the ring." I won't tell the rest.
What happened?
Well, he was engaged to another girl in between time. After he met me, he became engaged to another girl. I think this ring had been meant for the other girl.
No, it wasn't. I traded it in.
Oh.
No,
Well, anyway,
it meant for you.
it took us 3 years from the time we met till we got married. But by then we were pretty well acquainted and knew
No
what
use
we wanted.
wishing we could change it because we might not have had the same children. Not that I had your dad.
That's true.
I don't think, we don't look back at it. I don't look back with any regrets. I look at the 53 years we've been together and I think it's great.
That's wonderful. And where were you married?
Manti Temple, Manti, Utah.
And the temple president, President Anderson, married us. And my parents were ordnance workers at the Manti Temple at that time, so we had a quote, wedding breakfast at the temple, which was kind of unusual.
Yeah.
Now I'll tell you something unusual. cars were pretty scarce and I was in the service. I had given my car to my dad when I went into service. So her dad says, borrow my car and go to Richfield, which was 40 miles away maybe, and have your honeymoon and then bring it back. Well, we got 8 or 10 miles down the road to Gunnison, and it blew a gasket.
Oh no.
So I called him up and told him the car was there, and we went back out on the road and hitchhiked a ride with some of our relatives to Fillmore.
And that was where our honeymoon was.
So that's what you did for your honeymoon, huh? You hitchhiked.
Yeah, we hitchhiked to Fillmore.
What is the historical moment that you remember the most?
I'd have to say Pearl Harbor Day and Lindbergh flying across the ocean. Those two things stand out more than anything.
And Grandma?
Well, I think that the Second World War left a greater impression on me because I guess at least a third of my graduating class, the boys in my graduating class, had to go to war. My youngest brother went into the Navy, and Grandpa went into the Air Force, and that was a tragic time at the time that I was just that age. So the wars.
And what inventions or technologies do you think have changed your life more than anything else? That's a tough
I said jet aircraft, because I flew over 3 million miles with my job. Had the greatest impact. And duplicating machines were a big thing when I was first in business.
Like
Copy machines.
Xerox machines? Wow.
Yeah, well, I had another one, I had a miniature printer too that I used a lot.
Grandma, what do you think are some things, technological advances that
Well, I remember well when the television was first brought onto the market, and look how much we enjoy seeing the news and conference and the different things on TV. It's made a big difference in our lives. At the time that I was young, we didn't even have electricity. We used to have kerosene lamps, and electricity, I mean, my goodness, can you imagine being without, if we have to be without electricity for 2 hours a day, we think we've really been hurt now.
Yeah.
So that I guess was one of the greatest influences.
And Grandpa, this is the last question. What do you think? What sort of philosophy do you think has driven your life the most, or what sort of motivation have you had in your life, or what are some parting words of advice you can give us on this video?
What my dad gave me. You're blessed if you can work and have a job that you can work. And if you do, above everything else, be honest with both yourself and the people you work for and the people you work with. I think those are the two big philosophies that have influenced me. And I learned integrity from my grandfather and work from my father.
That's very important. Grandma?
Well, I think one of the greatest things that I have learned is to keep a positive attitude and to stay true to your values. Set your goals and stick to them, and set your standards and keep them, and live the way you would be expected to live by our Heavenly Father. And to learn all we can while we're here upon this earth. When I write my history, I'm going to call it Forever Blessed, and I feel forever blessed. It's been a good life.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Thanks for taking an interest. 2 or 3
Okay.
inches of snow on.
Go ahead, Grandma.
This is my dad's barn on our lot in Leamington. And when I rode the stacker horse, the fork that had lifted the hay from the wagon went through there and dumped the hay inside the barn. And that's how
So that's how it worked,
that's how
huh?
we stored the hay for the animals in the winter.
Fooled you, didn't I?
Mike, I would like for you to get this on video.
What's that? Oh,
Do
okay,
you want
here.
it on that one, or
Yeah, on
our
this.
family one, or on this one?
Let me get. Hold on. Let me.